Good evening. Tonight on Game All Nite, Jamey Stegmaier talks about entrepreneurship and I talk about beer.
Welcome to Game All Nite.
Well, hello and welcome. Tonight, I am joined by Jamey Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games. Welcome, Jamey, to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
This is pretty sweet. We just, you guys don't know, but making the sausage and all, but we just went through a little technical trouble, and Jamey's a trooper. He's here, and we're ready to get down to business.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. So many of you know Jamey. Jamey, you are out there. You put yourself out there on your blog. You're always going, telling people about all of not just your products, but you're also a big proponent for Kickstarter education. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I like to share the things that I learned from crowdfunding and entrepreneurship in general. A lot of mistakes, but also some successes as well.
Right. Now you're doing Stonemaier Games full-time at this point. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I've been full-time since December of 2013. So 13. A little over 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. So let's see. That puts you right after Tuscany got launched, but before Scythe. Is that right?
Tuscany was the first launch after I went full-time. So there was a lot of pressure on that one, but that was a few months after I went full-time.
All right. So I missed the original viticulture. I was one of those guys. But you know what? I'm kind of glad I did, because I definitely jumped in on Euphoria, and I went whole hog on that. That was amazing. Which then when you did the Tuscany and viticulture combo, I'm like, oh, I had to get it. And, I'm glad I did. The Grande Worker was the single best thing to happen to that game. I love it.
Yeah, that was one of those things where I learned the hard way that a little blind playtesting, I think, would have revealed how key that was to the game, because it wasn't an inherent part of the game in the first edition, but it was from then on.
Right, and I think that there were what, two chief complaints early on. Number one was how tight the seasons got, because you had to have that advanced planning, and then the other, there were some visitor cards that were a little more substantial than other ones, I guess would be a nice way to say it. I'm not going to say OP or anything.
Yeah, I think I think there were a number of visitor cards. There were some that were just better than others, but a lot of them were either good early in the game or late in the game, instead of being interesting and compelling at different times in the game for each card.
Right.
For a random draw.
Now, I mean, I'm a foodie. Viticulture was an early game that I got into the hobby. I entered around 2012 in that range. So this is one of those first games that was like big games. It was a theme I loved, because you couldn't really find that. And Vinos, while it has the theme, it totally doesn't have the theme, if you get what I'm saying, right?
Much more of an economic game, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not crushing grapes, and it definitely made a difference. But Tuscany, you really opened it up. And, so you have the Essential Edition now, because obviously you found some favorites in the Tuscany expansion when you were doing that. So I'm curious, I have my personal favorites. What are some of the things that you always want to play with when you're breaking that out?
Well, I think the obvious answer that I think is shared by a lot of people is the extended board, just because of it opens up a lot of new actions. There's a nice flow to the seasons. But beyond that, because that one's a bit obvious, I would say for me is the structure cards. I really love engine building in games, and I love that these structure cards add a permanent ongoing ability for each player. What about you? What's your favorite module?
I'm going to go right there with you. That board is a must. Like, I don't even think I've used the 2-season board since I ever got that version. It's just, you teach it, and structures, they're on there, so you use that too.
Right.
That, and I love all the different combinations of the special workers. So I'm I'm always trying to grab something fresh and something new out of that bag and try different combos and things like that. So
Cool.
I love that you can go back to a design and you can revisit it, but I also love that you can leave something alone. Like Euphoria is great. Like I love the world. The world is it's beautiful. It's great, and it's but it I don't know that it needs much more. I mean, race games are race games, right? I mean, it's
Right.
you got the engine and you race, and that's it.
Yeah, I think for Euphoria for a long time, we've actually been working on an expansion for it for over 2 years now.
Okay.
And we tried to go, by we, I mean the guys who usually do the solo versions of our games, the Automa systems. They've been working on the Automa and the multiplayer version. And they went pretty far in one direction, and they kind of reined it in, and it is going to happen. We do have an expansion coming out, but it's more of a more stuff expansion, like more recruits, more markets, that type of expansion.
Right. Not huge game changers and extra boards on the side. It's just
Right.
a more of the same, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So of course now, I mean, the elephant in the room is Scythe, because that's a behemoth for you guys right now. I have everything you've put out for it. I've yet to get the airships to the table, sadly, because I always feel like I'm teaching someone. So I don't get the chance to always break out something fresh. But I love it, and it's definitely a good staple. And I hear you still have something else coming out for that. Is that rumor true?
The rumor is true. Yeah, we have. I've co-designed the final expansion for it. So there are 3 total expansions, and this final one is called The Rise of Fenris.
Okay.
It's both a campaign expansion and a modular expansion. So you can either play it as a campaign, an 8-game campaign. You can reset it and then play the campaign again as much as you want, or you can break it into modules and mix and match, kind of like with Tuscany. You can mix and match the different modules. And you can also completely ignore the campaign. You can just go right to the modules if you don't have a regular group to play with.
Cool. Now, did some of that stream from the experience you had making Charterstone?
A little bit. Yeah, actually, a Charterstone opened me up a lot to the idea of a campaign game. They're different in that Charterstone has permanent changes. There's legacy changes.
Right.
Whereas The Rise of Fenris doesn't. But I've been more and more interested in telling a story through my games.
Sure.
And also while still letting players tell their own story. So campaigns, I think, are really nice at doing that.
No, I totally agree, and I think the story that you tell in Charterstone it's pretty cool, and I can see how it changes, and I can also see some of the challenges that have to come from trying to. I mean, this isn't choose your own adventure. You're not limited to 250 pages. You're trying to implement mechanics and story and theme, and because you've done X, Y, and Z along the way, P is going to happen to you later on in the game. I just encountered P. It's kind of annoying, but it's fun, and it's definitely different. And I think that's a lot of challenge. So what other challenges did you have, like when you were setting out to design that?
For The Rise of Fenris or Charterstone?
Charterstone, sorry.
For Charterstone. Yeah, I mean, you've touched upon one of the big ones. I was talking recently to J.R. Honeycutt, another legacy developer and designer, and we were kind of saying something I could say to him that I think many designers who haven't designed a legacy game can't relate to. But with Charterstone, while designing it, there were moments after a playtest or after reading a playtest report where I would literally just have to sit at my desk and think of all the different combinations of things that were happening. Like the load on my brain was more than any other game, because I was trying to compute all these different angles and all. Like if I change this one thing, it's going to mean this changes and that changes, and the order of this other thing changes. So that was a huge challenge for designing it.
It's I can't really speak to it because I'm not the math guy, but there's definitely something to be said when you're working in databases. When you get to what's called the grandchild level, the permutations are so huge that that data set is just such a hard way to get a handle on it.
Yeah.
So what do you think was the thing that gave you the grip on that system? Because do you stop and just say, we're going to go down this road, pull back, go down, pull back? Or do you just say, hey, if it breaks at one point, it breaks? Where do you draw the line?
Well, one of the key breakthroughs in the design was when I figured out how I wanted the story to progress and what that meant for the mechanisms. Because by doing that, by saying like, okay, after game 3, this specific thing happens, or after game 5, this specific thing happens, that at least gave me some control. Whereas some of the decisions players make during the game as to like what they build, what they unlock, what they do, that is not as much in my control as the designer. So once I was able to separate those things, like the things that I needed to control at a certain time and those that I didn't, delineating those two really helped me have the right control, I guess.
Okay. Now, I mean, you're going back and you're adding this campaign element to Scythe. You're adding this into Euphoria in the Storm of, you're adding another expansion. So are we done with viticulture at this point, or do you see something else kind of coming out? You can see where my heart lies.
I am certainly open to publishing more content for viticulture. My original intention when I published what I called the complete collector's edition was that was going to be it.
Right.
Then Uwe Rosenberg, a designer that I idolized, approached me with an idea for a mini expansion. And then our German partner, Forland, approached me with an idea for a new expansion that we're publishing soon called Visit from the Rhine Valley.
Right.
So as long as people keep coming to me with interesting ideas, for me, expansions often come from external sources. Like in my head, I don't have any other ideas for it. But if someone comes to me, then that might trigger something.
Now, Automa was like that because you didn't build that in.
Right.
A fan base just kind of built that around the game because they wanted a way to do that, right?
Yeah, that was fun to be a part of the start of Automa, even though I was more there as a publisher. Basically, a guy named Morton, who had been a volunteer for my company for a long time since the start of viticulture. When I told him that I was designing Tuscany, he said, I've had this idea for like a solo version of it. What if we put it in Tuscany? And I said, yeah, do whatever you want. And I said, don't just make it a variant. Don't make it a few paragraphs in the back page of the rule. Put whatever component you want in it to make this feel like you're playing against another human player. And he kind of ran with that freedom, and it's become a system that we use in our games that he continues to design. And it's even in the Gaia project now. He designed the solo system for Gaia project.
So now it's almost like a sub-brand of, if you will, where he comes into these games and designs them. And what's cool is they're not just, you have 3 dummy players, they move around and do this while you do your thing. They're actually completely different rule sets sometimes that he's writing around the system, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a separate rule book. It's usually a deck of cards. I think almost always a deck of cards.
Right.
That's meant to simulate interactions with an opponent without all the upkeep of having to actually maintain another opponent's resources in Tableau.
Awesome. Well, I definitely want to get into your Kickstarter and your entrepreneurship because I think that's a huge part of what you do and you give back to the community. But I do want to take a quick moment and pause for a commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to pick that entrepreneurial brain of yours and see if we can be successful too.
Okay.
All right. So we'll be right back after this message. GAN presents Dramatic Rules Theater.
The component that was hit must be removed. This might cause some other components to become disconnected. Remove them as well. If your ship is broken in 2 pieces, you decide which piece you will pilot to your destination and which piece will be lost. Lost components are placed in your discard pile on the right side of your shipboard. When you reach your destination, you will have to forfeit 1 cosmic credit for each lost component. Any playing pieces, crew, battery, tokens, goods on lost components are returned to the bank.
Right. So let's get into the entrepreneurship. So I've worked with several. I work in restaurants. That's what I do during the days, nights, and other times when I'm not here. And I've met some very entrepreneurial fellows in my time. So one thing that I see in common with everybody is this drive not only to do your thing really well, but to make other people learn from that experience. And I think you do that great job of that.
Yeah, that started really early on. I think when I found myself blogging about stuff that felt self-centered in terms of the company, like I was, and it really wasn't bad. I was like talking about cards that were going to be in viticulture, things like that.
Right.
And as I was doing that, I was like, okay, this is okay. This is probably interesting for a few people, but I'm not really adding value to anyone.
Right.
And, I thought, why don't I just write about the mistakes and insights, things that I learned from running Kickstarter projects to help other creators.
Now, on average, how much feedback are you getting from people on that side? I mean, we all talk to you about your games and things like that. I think we have a good picture there, but I imagine that there's a lot of people reaching out to you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, and this is partially due to what I've encouraged. A lot of it is in the comments of my blog or on my Facebook page or Facebook groups or Twitter, things like that, social media. But I do get people coming to me privately as well, and either thanking me, which always feels good when they say that
Sure.
my writing helped impact their project in a positive way. And sometimes people come to me for advice too. I don't do private consultations because I spend so much time running my business.
Right.
But I usually kind of I point them to the right blog entry and encourage them to write about it there. And I'm happy to comment and join the conversation there.
Right. And I think that, again, it comes back to, well, I can give you the advice, but if we do it in a public forum, I give everybody the advice, right?
That's exactly right. And oftentimes I might give a little bit of advice and someone else might chime in who has another great perspective if we do it in public that way.
Right. And yeah, and it's kind of it's turned into this collaboration, I think.
I love that. I love that aspect of the industry. It's kind of a unique thing in the game industry that for the most part, it seems like we're all here to lift each other up rather than punch each other down.
Yeah, I think our business is just small enough, and by our business, I mean, I've been in 10 episodes. It's not a huge amount of time, but I think, that the hobby in general is one of, I don't want to say it's one of rejects, but I think it's one of, it's built on people who may have been marginalized in other ways or looked down on in other ways. So I think that, we naturally want to encourage each other.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
And that's why it's really annoying when there's the one or two voices that aren't that way. And, those voices are always difficult. But, I mean, that's par for the course, right?
Yeah, that's going to be in any industry. Yeah.
Now, did you actually go and put all of these thoughts in a book? Is that what I saw on your website?
I did, yeah. A while ago, a literary agent approached me and recommended that I tell my story and tell stories from other creators in a book form rather than in the blog. So the blog, I pulled some content from the blog, but the book is called a Crowdfunders Strategy Guide. It's much more focused on, it's like a narrative story of my progress through Kickstarter and similar stories from other creators who have had successful projects or some failed projects.
Okay. Now, would you say that, from what I've seen in my limited work, I've seen that all of your projects have not only been successful, they've been very successful. And you're probably one of the first people in the space. So you're kind of defining what Kickstarter looks like for the board game community after that. Do you think that's fair?
And absolutely, yeah. I wasn't the first creator to be successful on Kickstarter in the board game space. I've followed a couple other companies, Tasty Minstrel Games, Red Raven Games, Clash of Games. They all had successful projects that I learned from. But the landscape was very different back in August of 2012 when Kickstarter launched. And so back then, raising $65,000 for a project was a big deal.
Sure.
And that definitely, I think, a lot of creators looked at that project, even though as embarrassed as I am to look at that project now, a a lot of creators at the time looked to it.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of lessons to be learned, and I think probably the single biggest lesson that, if you do go back and look, it's like, of course I did. I had to go see the original project page, right?
Right.
And it was the engagement you had with the community on that project, and then everyone after that. I think, you know, if you have any one thing that stands out, I think it's that, and the engagement factor.
I think that is an excellent way to put it. Because if you look at that project page, the art and graphic design on it aren't very good. The video doesn't really tell you anything about the game. I made all these mistakes. There's an early bird reward, there are exclusives, all the stuff I wouldn't do now. But I happily look back at that level of engagement. There's a lot of conversations that happen on the project, and a lot of stuff you can't see because I messaged every backer individually to thank them for their pledge within a few minutes of their pledge arrive, or a few hours sometimes, depending on what I was doing. But I tried to have that personal connection with everyone who joined the project. That made a big difference.
I would totally agree with that. I think it's huge to have that kind of feel. But, you know, I think you touched on the other thing, which I think is really interesting, because you kind of went in a very interesting path. Like, you launched Viticulture with early birds and exclusives, and then you launched Euphoria with the exclusive elements and things, even to the point where, well, hey guys, I remember getting the emails. Do you mind if I do a resource pack? Right. I'm going to put out the same thing, but they're going to look completely different.
Right.
I had to buy that too, by the way.
Oh, you did? Even though you already had the really nice version?
Even though I already had the really nice stuff.
Well, that was very nice of you. Yeah, that was a pivotal moment in my company. Because I put out that poll. I did exactly as you said. I realized that there was demand and interest in those realistic resources. And so I polled backers because I labeled it as a Kickstarter exclusive. And the results came back like overwhelmingly in support of me selling them separately. But there was a vocal minority, and sometimes I don't, like, I respect the vocal minority, but sometimes I just acknowledge that it's a vocal minority and it's not the way the majority of people think. But in this case, I was like, okay, I see what they're saying. Like, I don't want to go back on my word. And so I created all new resources that look kind of similar, but they're different. It was expensive to create them instead of using the same ones. And it started a whole line of products for us. And it moved me away from exclusives.
Right. And so then you go and then you launch Scythe, and you know, you go into the first miniatures game you make, and you have to deal with all the models. And I would say that was a pretty bare bones campaign. You didn't have tons of add-ons. You didn't have tons of, there was no exclusives, no early birds, very straight. And then we go to Charterstone, and you're like, you know what? I've grown beyond Kickstarter now, and this is going to be a direct-to-market release. And you do that. So, you know, it's a very interesting progression. Would you have pictured that when you started out?
Not at all, really, no. At the time when I got into the business, I did it both for my love of games and designing games, but also because I really loved the idea of Kickstarter. I loved the idea of not having middlemen, of being the publisher, the controller, and going straight to the customer and knowing the customer's name, knowing their face, knowing what they like and dislike and who they are. I love that direct connection. So as I've moved away from Kickstarter, I've tried to keep that element. But if you had asked me 6 years ago what I would be doing today, I wouldn't have guessed that I'd even be a publisher, because I didn't know that Viticulture would successfully fund. But I think it surprised me a little bit that we've moved from being kind of an upstart publisher using Kickstarter to a more traditional publisher that uses distributed retailers.
Right. And I think there's a little bit more there that we want to talk about, but let's come around to that right after a quick break, and then we'll wrap this up. So we'll be right back after this quick break.
This week's movie creator shout out goes out to Blue Peg Pig. Join Rob, Christina, Patrick, and new member Josh as they give us a different take on board games and the people surrounding them. Find them wherever great podcasts are found.
All right. So, welcome back. And this leads me to something that I just happened to see on Twitter today, and that revolves the map policy that Stonemaier Games just announced. Now, from what I understand, I just saw snippets real quick, but it's a very limited focused map, and it's, it might be the first one that I agree with. So, what was that big announcement?
So it's actually odd. It wasn't meant to be a big announcement.
Okay, what's little announcement?
Well, we didn't even announce it. It's something that I told distributors and retailers about, and I think the reason it felt announced today is that someone put it on Board Game Geek and maybe also Twitter.
Okay.
It didn't really come from me, but basically we have a very simple minimum advertised price policy on Amazon in the U.S., which says that retailers who sell products through Amazon, which is something that we don't do as a publisher, it's just something retailers use Amazon as a platform to sell stuff.
Sure.
They have a minimum advertised price now. They can't go below 20% discount off MSRP, and we're flexible to make exceptions to that after a product has been on the market for a while,
right?
To help protect retailers against inventory that they just can't sell. But yeah, so it's what do you think about it, Chris? You said you kind of agree with it.
Well, I'm kind of in that camp where anything that restricts the free market kind of gets on my nerves. Like, when people do exclusive deals with like I have my local game store. He doesn't deal with GTS distribution at all. Like he had a really bad run with them and he won't buy them. So guess what? No Plan B games from him because they went exclusive. And you know what? I want to support him because he's got a huge shop. He runs a great store and I want to support that. But now I have to make that choice of, well, now I got to go online if I want to do that. So I don't like things that restrict me, but at the same time, I recognize that, call it the Amazon problem where either they're buying huge allocations of things and then they're discounting the bejesus out of them, or somebody has a couple extra and they want to kind of quick get them out the door before the sales drop out. And I get all that, and a ding and dent, that makes sense. But, so yeah, I agree with this one. This one makes total sense to me. Now, as part of this brought on, are you concerned about the recent counterfeit problem that's cropping up with the Amazon products at all? Is that leading into any of this decision making at all?
It wasn't a primary motivator, but it's something I'm keeping my eye on. So far, I haven't actually. No, I've seen one Stonemaier product be counterfeited on a Chinese website. It was on Amazon, but yeah, it is. I'm curious to see, I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, and even I think Cool Stuff Inc. today just announced their our authentic guarantee policy, and I'm like, I would certainly hope so because. Those of us who know what's going on behind the scenes, it's that basically Amazon just gets all the product in. They don't necessarily care where it comes from,
right?
But it's coming in, it's allocated, and then it goes out, and there's it gets all piled together. So you don't know where it came from. So if somebody sends in a bunch of fakes and then they go out, consumer doesn't know, and we have no protection on that. So, and I imagine Scythe would be a perfect target because it's still, I mean, would you consider Scythe an evergreen at this point?
It's been on the market. It's coming up on 2 years on the market.
Wow, is that all?
Wow. Yeah. It was released to backers in May and June of 2016. So wow. I guess I'm hesitant to call a game evergreen while it's still in those early.
Sure.
But if we have this conversation in 2 years and we're still selling 20,000 copies, 30,000 copies a year, I would call it an evergreen at that point.
Cool. So obviously you have strong feelings about that now, and so what are the motivations here? Are they to protect all of our other retailers? Is that really what a map policy is designed to do? I mean, we're all fearful of Asmodee saying, no, every game's got to cost $50 from now on. I think as a consumer, that's my concern, right? Because it's not cheap. But, you know, when you're doing it for a very specific reason. And, you know, is that fair to say?
Well, I've juggled a lot of conversations with distributors and retailers and customers over the last couple of years, really, involving pricing. And similar to what you said, I am a capitalist at heart. I love the free market. But the thing I started to see on Amazon that really concerned me was this kind of the rate. You may have said it before, the race to the bottom and this lowest common denominator.
Right.
It's in business school, we gave the example of two gas stations that are across the street, and one lowers their price a little bit, and so the other one does too, and the other one, to keep up, lowers their price a little bit more. And that's Amazon. I see that way too much on Amazon, where people are just lowering the price a little bit, but constantly lowering it so that they can be the lowest price. And eventually, I think that becomes bad for everybody. So that's really what I'm trying to prevent through this policy.
Right. Because even gas stations call it quits and go equal with each other at some point.
Exactly.
You know, yeah. So that does make sense, because everybody wants to be at the top of that list, because we all do it, right?
Sure.
Go look for a thing, search lowest to highest. I don't even know why high to low is even an option. like seriously, who's searching that way? I want to meet this person, because it's certainly not me. Like, maybe if you have that one where it's like all $2 options at the bottom, but no, you're exactly right. So you want to be at the top of that list, or you want to trigger all those other monitoring websites that say, when it reaches the lowest price, send me an email, and they want to trigger that little buy impulse. And so, no, it's interesting. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. So what other business things can you see having an impact on the market in the very near future? Are you concerned about the Asmodee buyouts and things like that? Or are you saying, hey guys, look over here, I got a great company, come buy me?
Yeah, I'm not looking for a buyer at this time. And I've heard interesting like whenever Asmodee comes up, people have said to me, "Don't sell out, don't sell out," which I find is an interesting reaction, because there's that side of it. But also, if a company did ever buy Stonemaier Games, my hope is that I could bring some of our philosophies that have resonated with customers into the fold of that company, make a positive impact on them, and learn some things from them too. So I think there's often a positive to come out of those mergers and acquisitions. That isn't in our immediate future, but I can't rule it out. If someone came to me offering a lot of money and a way to maintain my brand and make my customers happy, that's what matters to me. If I can find a way to continue to make my customers happy, I'll consider it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think we look at the market as it stands right now, and you know, all these companies that were purchased, I mean, because it was a bunch with, you know, F2Z and, you know, the Plaid Hat guys and, you know, the several other ones, you know, Fantasy Flight. And honestly, like, has a lot really changed? I mean, Plaid Hat didn't make games while they sorted their act out. But other than that, I can't really think of huge customer impacts that have happened as a result, you know, other than my Ashes packs arriving a few months later than I actually anticipated.
Yeah, I as a consumer, as a gamer myself, I have not seen a big impact in those regards. I feel like I did hear something from a distributor. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he expressed some frustration over some things that happened. But as a whole, I haven't seen the you know, there's always an uproar when a big thing happens like this, and I haven't seen actual data of what's happened in reality to reflect that attitude.
Yeah, and I think you know, it's funny, we look to other industries to kind of be the canaries of what's to come, right? I mean, everybody points at the comic book industry of the 90s and how it bottomed out, but I think it's safe to say we're not in that model. That's not what, because the collectability isn't there. Right. But I think craft beer might be a great correlation, right? Because, you know, we have a lot of independent local guys, and then we have like AB InBev, and we have some of these other big ones sitting out there. So do you think I'm on something with that, or?
I've never heard that comparison, but that is a great comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, Asmodee's the AB InBev, but we're not going to water down Goose Island as a result, or make Bourbon County not quite as good as it used to be. But I see what AB InBev is doing, and I don't like it. Mm-hmm. But I see what Asmodee is doing, and I don't really have any feelings because I don't have any hard data to go on.
Right.
There's part of me that's fearful that goes, "Oh, this isn't good," but then at the same time, I'm like, Has anything really affected me yet? And I can't say yes.
I can't either yet. That if we talk again in a year, in 6 months, in 2 years, that might change. We'll find out. But for now, I'm still enthused to see so many independent game companies existing and thriving. So I like that there can be these big companies, and there can also be a lot of little guys doing great things.
Now, are you involved in any of the Unpub or the proto spiel movements at all? Do you get involved with any of that community?
We actually, a couple of years ago, in looking at those events, my co-founder and I decided to start our own. So we run something called the Stonemaier Games Design Day, which is essentially an Unpub-like event in St. Louis, run by us, kind of branded by us, but it's open to anyone. Mm-hmm. This year we're sold out. I just put tickets up a few days ago, and we sold out for this.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I really like those events. Have you been to any of those types of events?
No, the timing of Unpub is absolutely horrible for me because I ski a lot, and winter is just the absolute death to try and get away for those weekends. But it's sad because it's local. It's Baltimore. I can be there in 2.5 hours, and unfortunately, I don't get to go, but I've been to a couple of the local ones because one of the cool things Unpub does is they do the Unpub minis.
Yeah.
And the guys are local, and of course the shop I go to, the Games Keep, the one I talked about earlier, he does a couple Unpub minis there as well. So, I think they're great because they really help develop games.
Yeah, I love that model, and I haven't ever been to an Unpub, so I don't know exactly how they're doing it, but at the design day, it's mostly playtesting designs, but it's also just a time to learn from published games. So that's kind of the twist in design day, where we do have some people teaching published games,
right,
pointing out the interesting things in those games.
All right. I mean, I think it's interesting. You find a lot of ways to give back to the community and to try and bolster it and help it. And I think that is what being a true entrepreneur is like. I don't think it's about how much money can I get, how much money of other people's can I spend. It's about how can I grow this thing around me so that it lifts my boat at the same time, right?
That's a great way of putting it. I can't imagine there's any entrepreneur out there who hasn't benefited from the generosity of others. And I love to see people who realize that and give something back in a way that feels good to them.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Jamey, this has been amazing. I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of fun. I think it's time for us to have a little fun.
Yeah.
And I think we need to play a game.
Let's do it.
So let's take a quick pause, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to see if Gary can pull this off, because I have something unique planned for us. So we'll be right back after this.
Introducing The Climbers, a stacking and pathfinding game with a race to the top for 2 to 5 players to see who can be the last one standing. Using solid wooden components, gorgeous paint, this game certainly stands out on any table. Can you place, climb, and use special powers to be the first and only person to reach the top? Let's find out when you order your copy from Simply Complex Games, a division of Capstone Games.
All right, so today we have Jamey Stegmaier, and we are playing an interesting game. Jamey is known for seeing a piece of artwork and developing an entire game from it. And not only a game, he developed a system. It's a trilogy. I doubt this is the last thing we're going to see from it. And I decided that we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to do board games from artwork, but we're going to do this together, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So now you're testing my design chops. So through the magic of television or internet or whatever we call this, Gary's going to put up a piece of artwork, and we have to kind of design a game and pitch it to Gary. And then Gary is going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. And 1 is going to be, he's going to donate $1 and follow along on the pledge. And that's great. And number 5 is he's all in. He wants the metal coins. He wants all 3 expansions that were designed for the game, but not included in the game because they're too expensive to put in the game. And he's gonna early bird the crap out of it. So that's the 5. Do you got that, Gary?
Yep, I got it.
All right. So Gary's my judge. All right. So whenever you're ready, Gary, feel free to show us the first piece of art.
Okay. Illustration.
So the classic Starry Night by Van Gogh. All right.
Yeah.
So what are we thinking here, Jamey?
Well, I would ask this: What do you feel when you look at this illustration?
I feel cold.
Okay.
I mean, it feels like a cold northern village. I see maybe some village building.
Right.
You know, the spire there is doing something for me. I don't know exactly what it is.
The sky is so prominent.
It is.
How can that be manifested in a game?
That's a good question. So,
And there is a building. From what I can see, there's only one building, right?
Right. Well, I see it like a church spire right above where Gary is, and I see like some trees that line the village. You know, and then we have this like it looks like a large craggy tree that was there that was maybe struck by a lightning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And who are, I guess, if we're looking at this and we're the player looking at this, who are we? Who do we represent?
So I think we need to be the villagers.
We're the villagers. Okay.
I think we have to go there. I think we need to develop this village, but you know, maybe maybe it has to do with the night phase and a day phase.
Okay.
You know?
I can see that. Yeah. Maybe we could use the viticulture model of having summer and winter and replace that with night and day. Different things you can do at night, different things you can do during the day.
Right. I like it. And then you know, the building actions are a little smaller in scale, so we're not building like huge buildings. Maybe we're just kind of building onto a couple different buildings within the village itself and just kind of growing it that way.
Right. Are we trying to maybe please whoever's up in that spire, up in that tower? Please them. We're appealing to them.
Yep. I definitely think that's important. And I think we need to build these both at the same time. Like, I think there needs to be multiple villages, right?
Yeah, it looks like a wide area of villages that can be built around this building. Is it cooperative or competitive?
I think it needs to be competitive. If we're trying to please this person, I think that each independent village is going to be kind of competing for favor.
Okay, I like that.
All right, so let's think. What's one core mechanic that we could probably use?
Well, looking at the sky, I'm seeing a lot of circles, so we could use a rondelle or a Mancala mechanism.
Oh, you had me at rondelle.
Rondelle, okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I definitely think, you know, we channeled little Matt Gertz on this one, and I think we do that, and maybe. Here it is. The rondelle has a day and night side on it.
There you go.
Yep. So then as you move around the rondelle, it triggers the different phases. But there's only one action pawn on it that everybody has to do a follow action with that.
Right. Is that the leader, the person in the spire, that pawn?
Well, I think you could move the mini spire around.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
It walks through the clock.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, kind of like a Sulkin, every now and then somebody can bump it ahead the extra hour if they want to or something.
I like that.
No, I think that's it. Gary.
Okay.
That's our game, Gary.
Okay, so sum that up for me. So basically you have a rondelle
Yep.
where you're rotating around the time with the rondelle. And it's a village game where you are doing what? I'm assuming you're just trying to live until the next day.
No, that's a Bezier game. That's completely different. That's One Village Ultimate Werewolf. That's another different thing entirely.
Okay.
No, the different actions you take around the wheel will determine what you can do. And you have different actions during the day, during the night. But the actions progress.
Mm-hmm.
So you can plan and you can do. It is a little solitary, right? Like we're each building our own independent village, but maybe there's a common pool of resources or tiles that we're dealing with.
Okay.
So come on, you got to back this, right?
If I didn't just back a Rondell,
You muted yourself.
Oh, did I? Oops. Sorry. If I didn't just back Rondell, am I still muted?
No, you're good.
Okay, great. If I didn't just back Rondell 6 months ago, I'd be all over this. But you know what? I'd still back this, regardless. I back the duplicate games. Well, not duplicate games, but what's it called? Similar mechanic games all the time. So yeah, I would definitely back this, especially if it was based off of the Starry Nights. That's really interesting, just that by itself. All right, so next picture. Let me get out of here so you can see it better.
See, I like these ideas. Now I want to go my designer lizard brain is kicking in.
So what do we have here?
We got a cute cat. That's what we got.
Okay, there you go. You brought it up big. That's nice. Okay.
Play to your audience. What can we say?
Yeah.
All right.
Cats work on the internet. I love their cats.
It almost looks like he's laying on a Chinese takeout container.
He's taking a cat nap.
He is. Or she is. We don't know.
He or she, yeah, right. There are a lot of cat games out there. What can we do unique with our cat game that isn't already out there?
Yeah, because we don't want to do like Tot Tin Roof or anything like that.
Right.
Which still has the best meeples ever. No doubt. For those of you who don't know at home, Jamey and I are both cat people. Dogs are a lot of work that I'm not willing to invest my time in.
Missing out.
Yeah, you're just saying that because your dogs are actually calmed down right now. Just saying. There's truth there.
Guys always calm, surprisingly, but continue.
All right. So,
what if we're trying to... Oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, go.
Well, I was thinking the cat looks so happy and asleep. What if the game is about making sure the cat has pleasant dreams?
I like it.
Them happy and asleep.
Like when cats dream.
When cats dream, yeah.
All right. And I could see the first play. I don't know why but my first player token needs to be a pair of cat ears that the person has to wear.
That you wear, yeah.
All right. I mean, we got to be different because we can't do like when I dream or when I sleep. It can't be a complete knockoff.
Right.
But I think we can borrow maybe some Dixit-esque cards.
Yeah.
I think that's that's fair, right?
I think so. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, those work well for a dream game. Same with Mysterium. Mysterium has that style of card.
Right. And I think we need to piece together a story. Like why are these paws kind of going?
Right.
We don't see it in the picture, but they are.
Right.
So maybe there's a storytelling element in there that, these other games don't have to kind of set it apart, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's, you have a hand of these cards, and then you have to play out your story over maybe 4 cards to kind of say, what is this cat dreaming about? And maybe it's based on whatever he's laying around. Maybe we put out different cards with different cat pictures on it.
Right. And I think maybe with one card leading to another in a pleasant way for the cat. You don't want to have one thing that jars them out of their sleep. So the progression of card to card matters.
So I see like iconography on the lower left side or the right side that kind of what should ease into it and what should ease out. Because there should be like an amplitude that this progresses through. I like that.
So, Gary, what do you think? When Cats Dream, it's a card playing game with beautiful art where you're trying to keep a cat happy and asleep through storytelling.
What I would do is I would back it for $1 and wait for the pledge manager and then see how I think then.
That's fair.
Cat themes don't sell me. That's the thing. Cat themes don't sell me.
Well, I mean, it could have the Dog Dream expansion.
See, now if like I played for $1 and then the pledge manager came up and it was like, hey, we hit our stretch goal that we have a new expansion that's a dogs.
Right, but we don't hit your stretch goal if you don't go in. That's the problem.
But what if I go?
You're not getting me into the stretch goal.
But what if I go in and then it doesn't hit the stretch goal and then I'm charged for a game that I'm like, oh man, I just wanted the stretch goal. See, it's a catch 60. What's it? Catch whatever the number
is. Nice. Well, that's the audience, right? I like it. I think that there's something there. All right, come on, Gary. One more.
All right, on to the next one.
Ooh, that's interesting.
What the?
There's a story there for sure. I like that.
Oh, yeah. Kind of feel like we should have some Devo music on in the background.
So I think this one, probably miniatures game. Do you see?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm the fact that there's one alone makes me think it's either a team or it's a hidden traitor, I think.
Yeah, maybe hidden traitor or one versus many. Yeah, probably hidden traitor because he's not facing the others in the background. He's in front of them. Yeah, I like hidden traitor.
Okay. So we're definitely talking space theme, right? I mean, it could be hazmat, but I think we're talking. Oh, that definitely looks spacey.
It's dark. There's a little bit of. It's not horror, but it looks a little scary. Like I might want to do something here that makes players a little uncomfortable as they play.
Okay, I like it.
Traitor can do that. Traitor mechanism kind of puts everyone on edge.
Yeah, I think it needs to be done like BSG though, where maybe there's the one thing that BSG does that I love is that halfway turn. Yeah. Like you could still become a traitor halfway, or you could be double traitor to begin with. I've seen that too, right? But I think that you need to have that middle level.
That would reflect the art perfectly too. The person in the foreground is almost divided in half by their shadow.
Oh,
I like that idea of BSG of.
That's whole next level right there. So it definitely needs to be like an update to what I think that little core of BSG is. But the cards are cool, but I'd almost, I want to do something different. I want to do the raindrops and things like that instead of having cards in my hands. I want to have cubes, and I want to use a cube tower.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Like a Marigo or something that where you drop the cubes in, and then what comes out will determine pass or fail.
That's interesting. That way there's player control, secret control over the cubes they decide to put in the tower. No one else knows what you put in, but what comes out you don't have complete control over because of the tower. Right.
So I think that opens up to even having maybe multiple traders, because then you're gonna need the teamwork. So maybe it's not a full on, maybe it's a light trader where there's a couple hidden traders depending on player count.
Yeah, I like
to try and stack the deck, as it were, the cube tower.
Yeah.
So what's the main crux? Are we just trying to do the old escape the space station, or what do you think our impetus as this player is?
That is a good question. What is our impetus as the player? It's hard to say from this image because the darkness of space is all around them. We don't know what they're standing on or where they are. It's so stark in that way.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm feeling. I kind of want to say that they are on the surface of the planet, and they're trying to get back to like the Hab ring.
Okay. Okay.
So instead of being in the hab ring and trying to survive and get out on a spaceship, how about they're out in the wild and they're trying to get back?
They're trying to get back. Yeah.
Like something happened out there, like they went to visit like the big old spaceship that crashed on the planet and they're trying to get back.
I like that. Something happened. And actually with the something happened, that can lead to different scenarios in the game. Every time you play, something different can happen. That way you're not always doing the same thing, and there can be a little variability there.
Oh my God. So we're thinking if we take like, that kind of that BSG model, and I'm not saying we add legacy because we all know we don't want to go down that road because we want this to come out in the next 5 years.
You just lost me as a customer.
But I definitely think we could do a campaign, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe, the trader. Could you imagine playing a trader game over like 5 games?
Oh, that would be really interesting.
It's coming out.
Oh, is it? Well, I'm not talking about Werewolf like Legacy. I don't.
But that is it.
Yeah, but
that literally is it.
Right, but is it? I have a feeling that that's just going to be role manipulation. I don't think that like these roles are added, these are taken away, these roles are modified, these are not. I don't think it's going to be like you play, like the 3 of us play this game and you're the trader this game, Gary, and you're just kind of work through the campaign. Oh, hey, we got to the next step in the journey. We got back to the hab ring. And then the next time we play, guess what? You're still that person.
Oh, yeah. Right. I don't think they're doing that. Yeah.
No, I don't think they're going that far. So you have to keep that act up both in the meta and in the game itself. I think, oh my God.
I really like that. The idea of keeping a secret between games, weeks at a time, you have a secret that you're keeping from your friends. I like that.
I think that's it.
Are you sold, Gary? What do you think?
Well, I think we have to name this, Jamey.
Oh, we have to name it. Okay.
I think we have to name this one because this one is. I think this has potential. When Cat's Dream is nice, but I think this one. Mm-hmm. Cube Tower.
Names are tough.
Yeah.
We spent months trying to come up with a good name.
I mean, I kind of just want to go like, Red Planet or just, just something.
Is that a game? Trip. Or is it Red? What's I'm getting mixed up with games now. There's that Red Mars one or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it needs to be something big. It needs to be something ominous, and it needs to be dark.
Yeah.
All at the same time. Blood Planet. There you go.
Blood Planet.
All right, Simon. But all right. Well, would I buy this though? I would. Okay, I'll tell you my thought process real quickly on what happened. So
big minis, lots of molds.
Heard that at first, and I was just like, okay, I'm in. And then I heard like the hidden trader. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely in. And then at one point, my heart sank. My heart absolutely sank when Chris mentioned cubes. And I was like, no. But then he said, oh, we're going to throw it into Cube Town. I was like, oh my God, that just brought it like all the way up here. Yeah, I'm backing everything on this. I'm all in.
We got him. That's great.
I am too. I kind of want to try and make this happen now for some stupid reason.
Where did you find that art, Gary? I like that illustration.
No, this is all Chris.
Oh, that was Chris. Okay.
Believe it or not, like the night you agreed, I figured out the game, and I went and I put a folder of like 15 art pieces in there for him to use.
Oh, cool.
And, so I don't even remember picking that one, honestly.
It's a good pick. I like it.
Good choice. Well, I think that this is a great place to kind of wrap it up. That was a lot of fun, Jamey. Hopefully, we may have a glimpse into one of the future games there.
Why not? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, tell the fine people watching where they can find you.
If you want to find anything Stonemaier Games related or read all this content we've been talking about in regards to Kickstarter, you can find it all at stonemeiergames.com. And that'll refer you to all the different places where you can find me, like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. It's all in that hub of StonemaierGames.com.
Right. And, I would tell people just because, Jamey's blog focuses on kickstarting and stuff like that. Trust me, there is plenty in there for everybody else. I especially like the recent article about having a thick skin because I tell you what, anytime we put ourselves out there, whether it's a creative content creator or a maker of things, you need to thicken up. And I found that came, it's like that the sermon on Sundays sometimes just comes right at the right time. And that was perfect. So well done. Well done. Well, thanks for being on. Thanks for suffering through our technical problems we had there. And I want to thank you all for watching along at home. And be sure to tune in next week when you game all night.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our efforts at comedy and fun, please support us on Podpledge. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, don't forget to engage with us on Board Game Geek Guild 3134. You can also check us out on our website, GameAllNightShow.com. This show has been made possible through supporters like these. Angry Octopus.